Hello, read through the word friends. Welcome. Today, our reading today is June 28th. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Super glad to be with you. Today we are in the book of Isaiah, little bit in 2 Kings also, and continuing on with sort of the demise here of the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom they're in line too. It's coming for them too. And so we're going to dig in today. Isaiah preached, prophesied to the southern kingdom of Judah. But we also know that there are things that he directly talk about with Israel today too, and with other nations. So we are going to talk about that today. The key verse today is Isaiah 28, 5 and 6, and the title of our lesson is The Real Battle. So Isaiah 28, 5 and 6, then at last the Lord of heaven's armies will himself be Israel's glorious crown. He will be the pride and joy of the remnant of his people. He will give a longing for justice to their judges. He will give great courage to their warriors who stand at the gate. I want to read the NIV version too, just because I'm going to talk about a couple of the specific words they use. So in the NIV, Isaiah 28, 5 and 6 says, "In that day, the Lord Almighty will be a glorious crown, a beautiful wreath for the remnant of the people, of his people. He will be a spirit of justice to him who sits in judgment, a source of strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate." Let's talk about some of those words for a minute here. The Lord describes himself as a beautiful wreath for the remnant of his people. And that's interesting because just a couple verses previous, in verse 1, Isaiah's prophesying and he says, "Woe to that wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards, to the fading flower, his glorious beauty." So just a couple verses before that, he is describing Samaria as a wreath. Samaria, again, remember, the capital of Israel, the northern kingdom. The archaeological Bible describes Samaria as a beautiful, luxurious, and indulgent city situated on an imposing hill. So Samaria was supposed to be like the adornment, sort of the glory of Israel, right? But instead, this wreath of Israel became this corrupt, indulgent. We talked about this a little bit in the last lesson. This city where there was wickedness and corruption, and the people had turned to idols. They had turned to wealth as a huge idol. They were oppressing other people. But as I said, interesting that Isaiah uses this word wreath to describe Samaria, right? And then a few verses later, it's used to describe God to the remnant of his people. So the word crown in this verse is, the original Hebrew word is ăṭārâ. And just a couple verses down, when they talk about the word wreath, which also can sometimes be diadem in other translations. And that word in Hebrew is sephirah. And so the ăṭārâ and the sephirah were signs of royalty and importance and beauty and power. And it's almost like God saying, look, Samaria, you were supposed to be this wreath, this picture of how glorious this kingdom could be for God, right? To display to the beautiful adorning glory of God. And instead, Ephraim is they're called the wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards. Not a pretty picture. And so God himself comes along and says, look, I will be your crown. I will be your wreath, your glory. I will surround you. I will be your wealth. I will be your justice. I will be this, this beautiful, this beautiful adornment to show the world the love of God and the power of God and who he was. So I just think that juxtaposition is really interesting there. The second part of this is in the next verse, again, where it says, let me flip back here, that God will not only be a glorious crown, a beautiful wreath for his people, he will be a spirit of justice. There's that theme again. I'll tell you what. We're going to sound like a broken record here a little bit as we go through some of the prophets of the Old Testament, because justice is a big theme. It must have been important to God, and it must have been something that God's people were really messing up. So let's talk about this a second. It says that he will be a spirit of justice. We've talked about this word before, the word rûaḥ, the Hebrew word rûaḥ, and it means spirit, but it also means breath or source of life. And the word mišpāṭ means to judge. It's the word for justice, of justice. But it's in not just in one sense of judicial justice, but can be a broader sense, like to govern rightly in things. So we have God who's going to be the spirit of justice, the rûaḥ mišpāṭ. All right? And just think about that, his breath, like the breath of justice, breathing justice and a source of life to his people. And then the next verse says, a source of strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. So I love how that's put together. Spirit of justice, turning back the battle at the gate. How are those connected? So this ties in. And we hear this in lots of verses, right? Like the city gate. That is a real common terminology in the Old Testament. And at that time, the gates were like these massive, it was a massive kind of complex thing. There was an outer gate and an inner gate, like an extra line of defense against the enemy. But this was more than just some defensive military structure. So one of my favorite websites is called That the World May Know. And I went on their website, and I'm going to read to you a really good description of the city gates. The city gates played a significant role in ancient life. Because openings in city walls created a weak place, ancient people strengthened their gates to prevent their city from being easily invaded. Building a gatehouse inside the city wall became a customary practice. Also, the sewer channel under the main street could run below the city gate. During peacetime, city gates became the focal point for social and commercial activity. The chambers operated as a city hall, where legal matters and business transactions were conducted. The room above the chambers served as a guardhouse, the towers provided added protection and a lookout point, and the area outside the gate became a marketplace. The city gate became a gathering place for prophets, kings, judges, and other officials. These leaders would sit in the gate. Some examples they give is Jehoshaphat and Ahab, the king of Judah and the king of Israel, sat on their thrones in the gate of Samaria. That's in 1 Kings 22, verse 10. So the city gates played a really important part of justice. But the city gates weren't just for the weren't just for the defense of physical battles, right? They were kind of a hub of life for the Israelite communities. And it's where prophets spoke and kings judged, and where there was supposed to be justice. So when Isaiah says, that God will be a spirit of justice to him who sits in judgment, meaning God will give this spirit of justice to whoever is sitting in judgment, and a source of strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. God is going to be the spirit of justice in that gate. And the battle is not just a physical war, but a battle to live as the people of God were intended to live. A battle to uphold justice. A battle to turn back this shiny, glossy, twisted image of Samaria as a wreath, right? Looks great on the outside, totally corrupt on the inside. God's turning that back and saying, I'm your wreath. I'm your crown. Right? And I am your justice. And this battle that we're fighting for justice, for goodness, for righteousness, to help others, to love others, to administer true justice in the courts, that battle is happening at the city gate. And it's kind of like, again, a line of defense against an enemy. Not just a physical enemy, but an enemy that would come and distort and disrupt the glory, the image, the crown, and the wreath of God. And you think of God as the breath of life, right? He's breathing life into people. He's showing who he is, and he's trying to give people a picture of what he's looking for through these prophets like Isaiah. And I think about, today too, and what that might look like. Some of the things obviously about Samaria culturally are different than today, but the main idea and the heart of it is really the same. Are we looking for things to be glossy, shiny, beautiful, this adornment, But underneath there's corruption and wickedness and distortion. Or are we looking to fight at the city gate to maintain justice, true justice? Not justice just from an outside perspective. Not just a nice polished image that looks like justice. But true justice, where God is elevated and glorified as the ăṭārâ and as the tsephirah of his people. Isaiah 1:17, what is God looking for? Learn to do good, seek justice, help the oppressed, defend the cause of orphans, fight for the rights of widows. Here's that theme again. God wants us to take good care of each other. And he wants to turn back sort of this, again, to turn away from this image of wealth and power and polished, look how glossy this is. He wants to turn that back and go back to what's important. Go back to the city gate and fight for true justice. Defend, right? Defend the cause of the vulnerable and the needy. We're going to keep on this theme, friend, and we're going to try to get it right. We're going to try to live it out as God's people. Thanks so much for being here today, and we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.